This is the Potboiler. I'm Patrick Hughes. Welcome to Hollow Grim and the Killer of Killers, Part 3. Potboiler is an old term for pulpy paperback genre writing that I think deserves a fresh coat of paint. That's why I'm using it for these stories. Let's do the intro. Hollow Grim. Part-time marksman manhunter for the US Marshal, part-time postal clerk in Progress Township in northern Nevada, is on trial for murder. His killshot was fired across the town square in broad daylight, in front of dozens of onlookers, neighbors, and friends. The prosecution has built an airtight case. It seems to have all but convinced the old judge presiding. The verdict seems imminent, and the gallery seems ready to provide the noose. 3 episodes of this story are offered with limited commercial interruptions. Visit patrickhughes.ca for links to me and my other projects. And please stick around after the story for some light solicitation. I hope you like it. Enjoy. Let's play the music. Hollow Grim and the Killer of Killers, Part 3. It's not as easy being hated as it is to be hateful. Hisses and growls, low and near the rear of the room, hit me from behind as the crowd reacted to me standing and taking my place in the witness chair. The face before me stilled as I turned, straightened my waistcoat and collar, demonstrated to Dapsheen he wasn't the only man in Nevada wearing expensive clothes, and took my seat. The room had made their decision about me, perhaps long before the trial, but not too long before the judge. Mr. Grimm, earlier in this proceeding you had a comment pertaining to your guilt in this accusation before you. Yes, sir, I did. Would you care to repeat it for the judge? Ask me your question. Did you kill John Butler? Yes, I did. I killed the man named John Butler. The sound of air gathered quickly in shock washed over the crowd. Judge Jameson seemed simultaneously agitated and pleased. Son, are you confessing to this killing as a part of your official testimony? Yes, sir. And with that, Your Honor, the prosecution rests its case. You killed him? I did. The only people before me who looked surprised and not some version of righteous were the 2 lawyers. Both had an expression not too dissimilar from the judge, thrown, frustrated, and intrigued. But it's not murder, sir. Mr. Grimm, when I put this gavel down to the wood, my sentence is going to come with it. After that, only the governor, man that I understood is not too fond of you, can save your unstretched neck. There's nothing I can do about that, Your Honor. Is there anything you want to add? I think you'll want to lock the courtroom doors, sir. I can oblige that. Bailiff, bolt and guard the door. The crowd rumbled with angry confusion as the doors were shut. I killed the man these people know as John Butler. That's not the name I knew him by. His real name was Ephraim Bolingbroke. Before he was a fur trader named John Butler, he was a claim-jumping river pirate that worked along the border of California with a team of animals responsible for over 20 known murders. Bolingbroke is one of 3 names I want everyone to remember. The other 2 are Wendell Pike and Arthur Granley. This is ridiculous. Mr. Grimm, if you knew this, why did you not arrest him before 2 days ago? I am questioning this witness now, Mr. Dapsheen. Please address him through me. Jameson turned to me, focusing inquisitively. It's a good question, Hollow. Please answer it. Bolingbroke deserved to die, and I knew it would likely be me to serve that death warrant against him. Among his old team of vermin, Ephraim was the lead scavenger. They were said to each have their pursuit when they invaded a poor prospector's camp. Bolingbroke's was the women, daughters especially. The team's violent partnership ended when they turned on each other over a few gold nuggets, leaving only him standing. While most of the expressions before me shared a similar suspicion, 1 or 2 among the crowd seemed to soften with curiosity. I hesitated making my knowledge known at first, and risked giving him a chance to run, until the consequence was right. One night I watched him with a girl at the Pig's Hoof Saloon here in Goldhanger when he thought no one was looking. I could see the predator rising up in him in front of this girl. As he pulled back to hit her with the butt of his knife, he was running against her cheek, and I decided to stand in his way. The night I was describing was over 5 years ago, but fresh enough in the memory of a young woman present in the gallery, now dressed like a respectable wife and mother, to overtake her composure. She may have never known my role. To make my point clear, I showed him the warrant issued with his former name that I carried since recognizing him in town. I exposed the horse iron burn mark on his arm used to identify him, told him as coldly as I could that if he gave one more reason to like the idea, I'd piss on the reward they'd offer me for killing him. I was happy with him hating me. He deserved far worse than what he got. He died with no pain, but inflicted plenty. Well, that about lines up. Though from what I've seen, I can't imagine you happy. I assume you can produce those documents? I can. Why didn't you arrest him? Again, Dapsheen spoke out of turn, but without scolding, as he again predicted the judge's own question. I looked up slowly from my slight hunch over my elbows on the arms of the witness chair. My eyes set on Pastor Devine and punctured his expression with a stare like a curse. By now he could sense there were walls I was building around these circumstances and in this courtroom. The examination by Myron had shaken him somewhat, put him off his righteous pulpit. His eyes freed from mine and scanned around like a rodent in a corner. If I can legally take your life, don't expect me to make it convenient. Indeed, Hollow, that's about as cold as I've heard a lawman speak. I'm no lawman, Your Honor. As the good pastor said, I'm an instrument. And I'm good with that. Cold is what every instrument should be, till I can go back to my postal office and sort my mail. All the sad bastard poetry aside, why not put the bad man down sooner? A death warrant does not expire within state lines. I knew a day would come soon enough where his death would prove more useful than his life. After the night in the saloon, he lived, looking for me over his shoulder and in the shadows, which is almost as bad as looking from the jailhouse window at the gallows pole. Okay, so why murder him 2 days ago? To get you and me and 2 more men in this courtroom. Which men do you mean with you and me? A reflex he had perhaps lost with age twitched only slightly for my rifle. He was hiding something that held him hostage not too far from the matters at play around us. The point, Your Honor, is that there was no murder. Mr. Grimm was acting on a valid warrant. Provided in this package are the submitted evidences of Butler's true identity. There's another matter here to consider. Myron put his point home, like he shouldn't have had to say it. The old judge looked like he was considering if he let Myron come so close to calling him wrong, with one set of fingers stroking his 3-day-old stubble at the chin, and the other tapping his bench and the butt of my rifle like small gavels strapped into a metronome. The ground I was on was uncertain. Calling a mistrial would undo what I had set, and possibly leave a crooked hand to later rule on my fate. I needed to get him to the next question. The entire gallery was silent before us. Why have me lock the doors, Mr. Grimm? This court was convened for the killing of John Butler. But that won't be what it settles. There's a man in the room that is going to see justice today. The door was closed on him 8 days ago, Your Honor. There were just over 24 townspeople remaining in the gallery behind our tables, in the rows of benches that were once church pews, still occupying the rear half of the room. The crosses were all taken down from above where the judge's bench now stood, but a Gothic weight still hung over the room. They watched the unfolding events from their safe distance, each crouched, intent and judgmental, all like they craved something. To assume that any of this has a place in this proceeding is beyond my lowest expectation of the court of the people of the state of Nevada. I just want that on the record. We heard the first crack in Dapsheen's confidence as control of the room left his grasp. I demand this farce be declared a mistrial. The only path to failure for me was not seeing this case through on the record. You can't do that, Dapsheen. Myron never spoke familiarly enough with anyone to use their last name only. The tension was clear. Judge Jameson, Your Honor, you call this a mistrial now, or I'll drop the charges and file federal conspiracy charges against Mr. Grimm. When was the last time you threatened a powerful man in a small town, Dapsheen? I haven't had the pleasure. The bottom line, Mr. Dapsheen, is that you need to prove a material or capital gain for any of these actions to be a conspiracy. You know that. You're making a poor wager. It was more forceful than I had heard Myron speak. Again, a step fiercer than before. Nothing ends or adjourns until my gavel drops, son. Quiet down, Conrad. You might learn something you can take back east. The judge nodded my way. He had seen this process unfold before. I will keep this as brief as I can. I asked the room to remember 3 names. The first was Ephraim Bolingbroke. He was a lizard that had his end written some time ago. His matter is closed. The second was Wendell Pike. Wendell Pike is the name on a death warrant, a draft of which is confirmed by Percy to be in his own possession. Wendell Pike has actually been dead for some time. He died at the age of 3 in northern Wyoming. I'll come back to Wendell. The third name was Arthur Cranley. Arthur was an employee of the Cartwright Agency until very recently. He was killed 8 days ago in the line of what those men called duty. By now I was leaning back into my chair, like I was Doc Shillington telling an old story to an impatient but compelled poker table. Arthur sent me a letter detailing his intention to resign his badge only days before he was killed in a crowd by a seemingly random stranger, a vagrant dipped in dirt that himself was shot down soon after. Arthur was my friend. We grew up together. That can't be the only. Pastor Devine was showing offense preemptively. The room collectively shunned his outburst, and I continued. I'm not done, Mr. Culpepper. Keep your seat. Percy, you misspelled pistol. In a note to your keepers that came through my postal office last week, before all these folks, your man, Dickie Daniels, signed the register at the Progress Tavern 2 nights ago, putting you en route from the east, not the west as you described. The sun on your neck and left hand confirmed the direction you were riding. The only other day there was high sun in the last 10 days. The bullets in your gun are a brand not sold west of Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'll wager the same for your horse's bag of grains. Those points are circumstantial and possibly refutable for all the critics among us. The bullet shell you left at Cranley's murder, and in the gun found with young Joseph at the shooting, each have a distinctive scratching on the end. I'd never seen it before until I watched you the day before last. I recreated it with Tubbs last night at the jailhouse. All I had to do was flick the hammer against it as I spun the pistol barrel. Percy couldn't have displayed his idiotic gun trick more boldly if he'd brought in a circus banner. He was at my conclusion well before the crowd around him, locking into an expression of a cornered predator who isn't yet convinced that he's been beaten. The second name, Wendell Pike, is where the story rounds its last turn for home. If I'm ever asked, I'll say it was for an unexceptional, just cause. As much as it would please me to see an end to Cartwright agents, as a company and as a species, polluting Nevada and the Midwest with the smell of spent bullets and growing heaps of homicidal political garbage. Percy's mess was a measure beyond. He was killing compromised agents and less loyal associates of questionable value and likely incriminating insights. 5 men, including Arthur, in a straight line from Wyoming to here, and on to somewhere near that camp en route to Carson City. It's not that I cared exactly, but his cannibalistic retirement program needed to end. Documents and accounts beyond my reach. I might say it was revenge for an old friend. Dramatic plot for a lone gunman. That will be satisfactory, in my opinion, for those who choose to subscribe. To be honest, and I wouldn't deny this if asked directly, Percy made me angry. Just like Dapsheen. I see the 20th century coming, and Percy is not welcome. The year 1900 won't be big enough for him and all the rest of us. I couldn't just call him out and cut him down. Some frontier show of justice. I couldn't have this confrontation in a casual high-noon street-side venue and risk more charges filed against me or have him slither through another crack or through a rightful noose. Across the crowd before me, Their collective expression stuck on my words, while Percy's bent differently than the rest. Angry like he already knew the next page. Planting my bad foot down first, I stood as I spoke, intent on keeping the attention on me. Wendell Pike, the name on that warrant Mr. Daniels is carrying, has some road behind it. Somewhere near the start is an old marshal's trick my father used. He would have a warrant issued with a false name of a past relative or a coded reference. Wherever he cast the hook, the warrant always brought in fish. Crooked bounty hunters, reward fraud, unlawful execution, or conspiracy accomplices would always jump into the boat. The courts never spoke highly of the method, as they won't tomorrow. But they don't refuse them either. Wendell Pike was killed by his drunkard father when he was too small to defend himself. He was innocent. His name makes me think of real injustice, and of the pleasure I took when I evened that balance out for him. The false warrant bulletins were sent out by the marshal's office at my request. All the same except for a perfect forgery that I wrote and sent to the address on Arthur's letter to me from Salt Lake City. It is flawless, except for the spelling of Wendell. Wendle. I doubt that you noticed that, Percy, but I've wagered this entire day on the fact that the warrant I wrote is now on your person. Percy had slowly inched forward as I spoke, as I hoped he would. From his stand in the second row of pews next to the pastor, up the aisle and to the gate behind her table, in a manner that didn't arouse attention away from me. He pulled a folded paper from his chest pocket, presented it with a shameless smile, like a busted gambler, and discarded it to the floor. His expression had changed from arrogant charm to petulant anger, but had flattened and straightened like a snake moving over stone with his eyes set. It was said that he could draw quickly and be deadly when he wanted. The little I'd seen of the way his gun had danced in his hand made the threat a solid one. Are you honestly here to condemn me for hunting other wolves? Your entire life, spent under your daddy's shade, has been about this very same goddamn thing. Is there a statute yet against hypocrisy in the pious state of Nevada? My entire life, my father's shade included, I've watched men who've heard nothing but their own song for so long that they think their shit belongs on a dinner plate. Percy hated the crowd, finding me funny. I don't think it's the same. The law doesn't think it's the same. Who said you get to kill any wolves? Who says I can't? This is the wild. The law is a story. A suit and a fountain pen, written after we decide who falls. More shit, Percy. That's all I hear. With an effortless glancing gesture that followed less deliberation than I could detect, Percy sheathed his iron and fired off 2 quick bullets into the wall behind the judge and myself, far enough to read as an exclamation and not a threat. The orbit of the room was instantly changed, pulling all the gravity in his direction. Now I'm supposed to say something angry and throw down desperate. You'll never take me alive! Like all I've got left is talk. I could hear the sound of metal sliding over wood as the judge moved my rifle toward the corner of his bench just over my shoulder, at a pace matching Percy's slow stride, hidden by the edge of the bench. If you've got more than talk, Percy, I suggest you make it known. With the same odd smirk, Percy moved at Byron, grabbing his arm at the shoulder and quickly thrusting his pistol into the meat of his neck below the ear. As he did so, he offered the opportunity to reach for my rifle from the bench. I flipped the rifle over my hand, cocking the lever as it turned, and brought it down on him as the gun pressed into the skin of my terrified attorney. I had nothing more to say. He snarled playfully. I acknowledged his intentions with a sharpened squint and a tight nod. Neither delivered in a playful intent. My rifleman trade was about patience and timing. I looked down my gun and threw him for the passing of maybe a second, and he knew my bet was in. He had to make his own. He had a strong wager in front of him. Shielded behind Myron, he knew he could risk me firing first. I could misfire, I could miss, or I could put one in Myron and give him the time needed to return deadly fire. He was quick enough to then put down Tubb and the bailiff with a shot each and change the stakes of our game. The judge leaned into me only slightly. Just end this. I could see Percy's forearm clench as he started the motion to shoot. I gave him the twitch of my shoulder he needed in response to follow through. I could tell he was going to beat me to the shot. His gun pulled away from Myron's neck faster than a draw from a holster under the high noon sun. I had no choice but to accept the shot. My Winchester didn't have action as fast. His bullet went so close to my ear that I could feel the wind and heat pulled behind it. The room shuddered in shock that Percy had such nerve and that I was still standing. The precise moment to follow, the click of a camera shutter from the right of the gallery sounded and flashed a new distraction. I threw myself to the left, taking aim as I fell, getting the angle I needed around Myron. Percy didn't expect my falling rifle shot. The bullet pierced square into his ribs, into his right lung. His scream was open wide, but almost silent. He erupted with wounded anger, taking a step back one pace, getting his gun back on me, and a pistol from the gallery rang out as he turned. Tubb got him right through the badge. I moved in between him and Myron as Percy stumbled and fell back to the floor. I lowered my gun slowly, from eye level down, like I was bringing the music to an end. His prideful expression is inverted as he gasped for breath, looking up past my rifle at me, first pleading for fairness, and then for some sense of peace through fast, blood-filled breaths. I pulled Arthur's letter from my pocket and opened it for him to see. There was one other person that knew how I got the name Hollow. On the same day he got his nickname, which he would have used on a letter addressed to me. This was not written by Arthur Cranley. You wrote this letter as a taunt, to call me out. Bet you saw this playing out on the dirt under the high sun, and come the next day you'd finally have your fame. Now you're a number in my shade. His last bit of strength was summoned into a glare that cursed me without words. Then he fell. The moment subsided. Those remaining in the gallery rose in tense chatter and slowly filed out. Many stopped to congratulate a beaming Sheriff Tubb. Pastor Devine slipped out with an eye over his shoulder. The smile he got from me assured him that our day was yet to come. Judge Jameson stood over Percy's body. He halted Tubb from starting into an old story. He slowly shook his head. Every gunned hand living wishes he was done with death, unless he's wishing to be done with living. The judge said it like a slogan. My father said that. He did. I heard him say it once years ago in that tavern, where now you're always perched on an elbow wasting your time. I'm told you stand at that bar with Doc Shillington night after night, looking out over those poker games, still like a statue. They say that's why you're named Hollow. I've heard the same theory. I suppose I'll have to know Arthur's nickname. Nemo, from his favorite book. And how about Hollow? You'll have to get that from Nemo. Percy's cousin and his second were rounded up the next day at the camp on the way to Carson City. They both quickly offered testimony on a pattern among the men Mercy had retired. Percy's cousin and his second were rounded up the next day at the camp on the way to Carson City. They both quickly offered testimony on a pattern among the men Percy had retired. His aspirations on a career beyond the Cartwright Agency and access to incriminating accounting documents. Every time you're in my courtroom, it's some sort of event. All I learned from your chess games, as this simple kid put it, is that I need more bailiffs tending guard. I knew I was setting something violent. I'm sorry I couldn't warn you. No, you're not. Myron spoke up again in a way that no one was expecting. He was still in the swell of excitement. He beat your draw, with me as his shield. I saw him twitch as that photograph was taken. If it wasn't for that camera clicking, you'd have never had that shot. The more times you wager, the more patterns you see. Ever since those fast shutter cameras were released, every front page article I see under a violent headline has a picture of a drawn gunfighter taken at the scene. I have to imagine that's quite the distraction. He knew as he asked, as exasperated as he may have been, that I used it as a strategy. I invited the press. I made sure they knew the event warranted a photographer. The article and the photo came out the following week. I was poorly represented. The heroic language was obvious and inelegant. The impeccable U.S. attorney remained as the others started down the aisle to leave. His eyes were no longer predatory and were seething with rage reined behind a professionally sharpened smile. It isn't just any trivial desert crime that gets a litigator like myself out to your charming corner of the country. He left me with a space for a witty retort, but it was beyond my interest. I stared at him with my own emptiness, fairly certain where his statement was going. I think this is when men in your circles warn their opponents about the next battle in the war. This transactional violence is going to come to an end. If every one of you has to die, your violent species will be evolved out. To that end, you will see me again soon, Mr. Grimm. I'm not a part of the battlefield that trades in threats, Conrad. My posture leaned in for a handshake, and as he instinctively matched it, I tapped the side of his leather bag with my rifle barrel, where the sound of something heavy had audibly shifted. A faint metallic tap sounded back. Made a similar sound when he arrived and took his place at his table. His smile dropped. Percy knew enough to keep a reliable weapon within reach, even if he couldn't see what was coming. Conrad may not have been willing, but he was aware. That nickel-plated pistol was not Percy's. His gun was kept for him nearby. The same silly scratches will be on those bullets, just like the ones on the floor behind us. He knew how to hold his mind and consider his posture. He smiled like he had his 7 acceptable reasons to have the pistol on his person. He knew what was coming next. I don't deal in threats. My transactions occur from a distance, where the leverage of harsh words is rather useless. What I told Bolingbroke, or Butler, when he had his knife on that girl, was no threat. I was always going to come for him. I have no threat for you, Conrad. Only an item to consider. When you come to see me next, expect that I'll see you first. I started down the aisle, leaving his stare as his retort immediately formed. His charming voice followed me with a pointed edge. Where I come from, Mr. Grimm, people I know call that a threat. When you get back there, I continued walking down the aisle to the door. You can tell them, on all the roads they see going west, there's a killer happy to stand in your circle and see who evolves. I stopped and spoke over my shoulder. If it's you pointed this way, I can only hope that killer is me. A warm waft of dusty, varnished wood and stale air followed me out through the once pious archway into the street and the calm blue afternoon sky. There was a gorgeous red sky that night. The matter of my name would come again another day. Regards, Hollow Grimm. Thanks for listening to the conclusion of Hollow Grimm and the Killer of Killers. More Hollow Grimm stories are available in the feed, as well as a host of other bits of my work. Let's do a little business and have our call to action. More stories like this one are linked through my website, patrickhughes.ca. There you'll find access to my other projects, links to my books and ebooks on various platforms, and a contact me function. There's a lot of Hollow Grimm related content ready for the taking. Please rate, review, comment, and subscribe to this podcast. Share in your socials and recommend the Potboiler and my writing to all your friends. No matter where the roads in this world take us, the best place you'll ever find your fiction is with your friend's great taste. Thanks again for listening.